Arianna Hayes never planned to return to the life she escaped. She built distance, silence, and freedom one fragile day at a time. But the past has a way of breaking locks she thought were sealed. It began with a message about a party she never agreed to fund. A celebration dripping in luxury, stamped with her stolen name. The discovery sliced through her peace like a cold blade of truth. Someone had reached into her life, her identity, her hard-earned safety. And Arianna knew exactly who was capable of crossing that line. The family she once trusted now circled her like shadows in daylight. What waited ahead was more than confrontation. It was revelation. The request came on a rainy Thursday, slipped into Arianna's voicemail like a familiar trap. Her mother's voice carried that soft urgency she used whenever she wanted money. Arianna listened in silence, feeling old wounds tighten beneath her ribs once again. They wanted her to pay Jenna's tuition because family helps family, as if that were mutual. It never was, and she knew it, but hearing it again still cut deeper than she expected. She played the message twice, trying to understand how they still felt entitled to her life. Every sacrifice she made growing up had vanished from their memory long ago. They only remembered the version of Arianna who fixed their mistakes without hesitation. But that version had died the day she moved out and locked her door behind her. She called her mother back, trying to keep her voice steady despite the storm inside. Her mother didn't even say hello before demanding to know why the money wasn't sent. Arianna felt the familiar heat rise in her chest, but she didn't let it take over. She said no, clearly and simply, and the silence that followed felt like a held breath. Then came the accusations, sharp as broken glass thrown without care for the wounds. Her mother accused her of being selfish after everything they did for her as a child. Arianna swallowed the bitter taste of disbelief, knowing the truth was the opposite. She said no again, and the word felt like a door finally bolted shut. Philip's voice joined the call, loud and angry, demanding she step up for her sister. She felt the old fear tug at her bones, but it no longer owned her the way it once did. He ranted about responsibility, while ignoring the responsibility he never carried himself. Jenna cried in the background, a practiced sound that had saved her countless times. Arianna felt the familiar pressure to fix everything, to make the crying stop. But she didn't bend this time, not for guilt and not for noise. She ended the call before any more venom could spill into her day. Her hands shook when she set the phone down, but it was a clean, powerful tremble. She realized in that moment how much she had grown since leaving that house. She wasn't the girl who said yes to survive. She was the woman who could say no. Days passed, and the calls multiplied until her voicemail overflowed with demands. Her mother tried guilt, then anger, then silence, waiting for Arianna to break first. But she didn't break, not even when Jenna sent a long message calling her heartless. Arianna blocked their numbers one by one until the world finally quieted. The quiet felt unfamiliar at first, like stepping into a room she wasn't allowed to enter. But then the quiet became peace, and the peace felt like oxygen she had never known. She started waking up without dread, eating without tension, breathing without fear. Her paycheck was her own, her time was her own, and freedom tasted sharper than hope. She realized she had been living for everyone but herself since childhood. Now she lived for her own future, and that future began with silence. For 6 months, she built a new life piece by piece, gentle and steady. And she believed, for a while, that the past had finally loosened its grip. But the past never lets go quietly, especially when it believes it still owns you. And soon, it would return with claws sharper than any demand for money. The message arrived on a calm Sunday morning, disguised as something harmless and cheerful. A coworker forwarded a flyer she found online, smiling at the idea of Jenna's grand celebration. Arianna stared at the glittering poster, confused by the scale of the event being advertised. The rental hall alone looked expensive enough to drain a month of her savings without effort. She zoomed in, studying the details, feeling a strange chill gather in the pit of her stomach. Everything about the party screamed cost, luxury, and the same excess Jenna always demanded. But Jenna never planned anything modest, so the extravagance itself wasn't the shocking part. What unsettled Arianna was the timing, the secrecy, and the strange familiarity of the setup. She opened her banking app out of instinct, expecting nothing but her usual quiet routine. The moment the numbers loaded, her breath caught somewhere between disbelief and dread. Thousands of dollars had vanished from her credit line, each charge linked to party services. She scrolled through the transactions, recognizing names of companies she'd never spoken to. Decor firm, catering company, DJ service, event coordinator, everyone confirmed as paid. And every payment carried her name, her address, her card number, her stolen authorization. Her chest tightened as if the room shrank around her, suffocating and shrinking its walls. Someone had gone into her life with the confidence of someone who thought they owned it. Someone who believed they had the right to take what she earned without permission. She didn't need to guess who would dare something so bold, because the answer was obvious. Her family had crossed lines before, but this wasn't borrowing or guilt-tripping anymore. This was identity theft, calculated and deliberate, executed with frightening precision. Arianna called the bank, hoping it was some glitch, some error, some mix-up in processing. But the representative confirmed each charge, each authorization, each matching detail. Her voice shook as she asked for copies of the contracts tied to the transactions. Within an hour, she received PDFs, and her stomach twisted as she opened the first file. There was her name typed neatly under financial guarantor, followed by forged signatures. The handwriting wasn't hers, not even close, but it mimicked enough to fool the system. She read the next contract, then the next, feeling the horror grow heavier with each page. This wasn't a desperate mistake. It was a coordinated effort that took time to plan. Her mother's email appeared on one vendor form, listed as the primary organizer. Jenna's number appeared beside instructions for special requests and decor arrangements. And Philip's handwriting scrawled across one page, sloppy and unmistakably familiar. They had done it together, using her identity like a credit card left carelessly on a table. Arianna printed every file, stacking them into a thick, unforgiving pile of evidence. She contacted each vendor, confirming the details and gathering official statements. Some were sympathetic, others annoyed, all shocked to learn the payer had been unaware. By the time she finished the calls, the sun had set, leaving the room cold and dim. Arianna sat on the floor, surrounded by documents bearing her stolen name. She felt anger rise first, sharp and electric, then the crushing realization beneath it. Her family hadn't just violated her trust, they had violated her identity. And whatever came next would not be a conversation, but a reckoning. Arianna arrived at the venue early, long before the first guests trickled in. The hall sparkled with lights, flowers, and decorations she had unknowingly paid for. Her heels clicked on the marble floor, each step echoing louder than she expected. She saw Philip packing near the entrance, checking his watch, his face tight with tension. Her mother hovered by the catering table, pretending to adjust flowers but eyes wide. Jenna flitted around, oblivious to the storm about to descend on her perfect party. Arianna pulled the stack of contracts from her bag, feeling the weight of truth in her hands. She walked to the front desk, where the event coordinator looked up nervously. "This party is being paid with my identity," she said calmly, voice carrying through the room. The coordinator froze, glancing at the signed contracts in Arianna's hands. Guests began arriving, curious murmurs spreading as Arianna's presence created a ripple. She addressed the room, each word deliberate and measured, holding the audience captive. "Every service, every decoration, every charge is under my name and approval," she stated firmly. Gasps rose from guests who had assumed this was a simple celebration. Philip's face turned crimson, a mixture of fear, anger, and disbelief flashing across it. He stepped forward, trying to interrupt, but Arianna didn't flinch or pause. She laid out each contract, showing the names, signatures, and fraudulent authorizations. The staff confirmed each claim, nodding to her, their unease turning into support. Her mother whispered under her breath, trying to concoct an excuse that Arianna ignored. Jenna froze, cheeks flushed, realizing for the first time that Arianna had all the control. Arianna took a deep breath, feeling the tension tighten like a rope around her chest. Then Philip lost control, grabbing her arm roughly and yanking her toward him. Shock and fury erupted in the room as he squeezed her hand, causing a sharp sting. She tried to pull back, her voice rising, commanding the room to witness everything. Then his palm landed across her face, a sudden, burning shock in front of dozens. Guests gasped, some standing up, phones snapping pictures documenting the assault. The staff stepped in quickly, trying to separate them, while Arianna backed away. Her hand throbbed, her cheek stung, but her resolve only hardened in the moment. This was no longer just a family dispute. It was proof, undeniable and public. She turned to the coordinator and said, "Cancel everything. No services are to continue." Each cancellation shocked the staff and stunned the arriving guests into silence. Her mother tried to argue, but Arianna remained unwavering, calm yet fierce. Jenna began crying, overwhelmed, as her fantasy celebration crumbled before her eyes. Philip shouted, red-faced, fumbling with words that carried no authority anymore. Arianna handed copies of contracts to the venue manager and security staff for records. Guests whispered to each other, watching a carefully hidden family secret unfold live. The room vibrated with tension, a mix of fear, awe, and disbelief at the confrontation. Arianna felt a strange clarity, knowing she had turned the tables completely. Philip's anger was palpable, but so was his fear, and that fear belonged to Arianna now. Her mother looked helpless, a shadow of the woman who had controlled her for years. Jenna clung to Philip, sobbing, realizing that luxury couldn't protect her from truth. Arianna stood in the middle of the room, wounded yet unbroken, commanding attention. She had turned a stolen celebration into undeniable proof of betrayal and control. And in that moment, she understood that no apology could undo the power she had reclaimed. Arianna left the venue with the contracts clutched tightly in her hands. Her face ached from the slap, but her resolve had never been stronger. The first call she made was to the local police, her voice steady and precise. She reported identity theft, financial fraud, and the assault that had just occurred. The dispatcher listened, taking every detail, every transaction, every signature note. Arianna emailed scanned copies of contracts, receipts, and photos of the event chaos. She included timestamps, witness statements, and the vendor confirmations she gathered. The officers assured her they would open a case immediately and send an investigator. Meanwhile, the vendors began calling Philip, her mother, and Jenna demanding payment. The financial collapse hit the family instantly, with debts piling up faster than they could react. Her mother panicked, borrowing small sums from distant relatives to cover overdue bills. Jenna cried incessantly, finally realizing that extravagance had consequences beyond her control. Philip fumed in silence, unable to act without incriminating himself further. He had tried to maintain dominance, but the law now tilted the balance entirely. The family lawyer suggested Philip file a civil suit against Arianna for disrupting the event. But Arianna's attorney advised a counterclaim for assault, identity theft, and emotional damages. A restraining order was filed, granting her legal protection from Philip and her mother. Arianna felt a strange relief as the paperwork was signed, sealing her safety legally. She knew the battle had just begun, but for the first time, she held the upper hand. News of the confrontation reached extended family, who had previously turned a blind eye. They whispered, questioned, and regretted ignoring Arianna's past struggles and cries for help. Some offered small apologies, hesitant and half-hearted, fearing repercussions. Arianna listened, polite but unmoved, knowing nothing could erase years of neglect. She focused on her own life, prioritizing security, work, and emotional recovery above all. The investigators contacted her repeatedly, requesting clarifications on charges and contracts. Each call reinforced the reality that justice was moving slowly, but surely in her favor. She documented everything meticulously, leaving no loophole for manipulation or evasion. Philip's threats became empty words once the restraining order and police involvement began. Her mother oscillated between guilt and denial, still attempting to explain away responsibility. Jenna continued to cry, pleading for forgiveness that Arianna knew she did not owe. Even as her family collapsed financially, Arianna maintained composure, grounded in truth. She realized she had become the authority in her life, no longer dependent on them. Her bank accounts were secure, her career untouched, her freedom legally recognized. She could now plan her next steps without fear of financial exploitation or emotional harm. Each vendor who confirmed her claims added weight to the legal proceedings she led. Every documented proof diminished the family's ability to manipulate or intimidate her. Arianna spent long nights organizing evidence, preparing for the inevitable court battles. She kept detailed notes of every interaction, every conversation, every threat received. Her home became a sanctuary, a space where she could process anger and reclaim strength. The collapse of her family's control felt surreal, but the reality of justice anchored her. Arianna finally understood the full scope of their betrayal and her power to end it. And as she closed her laptop one evening, a sense of calm and inevitability settled over her. The law was on her side, her freedom secured, and the reckoning for her family unavoidable. Days later, Arianna received a call from the detective handling her case. He asked her to come to the station to review new developments in the investigation. Her mother's involvement had been confirmed beyond any doubt by forensic evidence. Emails, contracts, and bank authorizations all pointed directly to her complicity. Arianna felt a mix of anger, betrayal, and disbelief, but she stayed composed. She agreed to meet, knowing it could lead to answers or more chaos. The station smelled of bleach and paper, a stark contrast to the turmoil outside. Her mother was waiting, escorted by 2 officers, face pale and hands trembling. She looked smaller, frail almost, no longer the commanding presence of Arianna's youth. Her eyes met Arianna's, filled with a mix of fear, guilt, and desperate hope. I need to tell you the truth," her mother whispered, voice cracking under tension. Arianna listened silently, wary of manipulations she had endured for years. Her mother began recounting events, admitting she had orchestrated the fraud. She explained how Philip pressured her, how Jenna's constant demands escalated things. Every word confirmed what Arianna had suspected, but now was undeniable fact. The officers took notes, watching the interaction with careful attention and neutrality. Her mother confessed to signing contracts, using Arianna's card, and hiding evidence. She admitted she had known the consequences, but felt trapped by fear and control. Arianna absorbed each detail, her emotions swirling between fury and reluctant understanding. Memories of years of neglect, favoritism, and emotional manipulation resurfaced sharply. Her mother begged for forgiveness, saying she wanted to do the right thing before arrest. Arianna remained quiet, weighing whether compassion had a place after decades of harm. She realized that hearing the truth didn't erase the pain or restore stolen years. The officers guided her mother to complete formal statements, documenting every admission. Arianna watched as the woman who raised her acknowledged wrongdoing for the first time. This was a confession not just to police, but to the daughter she had repeatedly failed. Her mother's body shook as she signed forms, accepting responsibility for the crimes. Jenna was nowhere to be seen, likely overwhelmed by shame and fear of consequences. Philip remained outside the station, packing and muttering, his anger futile against law. Arianna felt a strange detachment, observing her family's unraveling without panic. She knew the law would determine the rest, and she didn't have to carry it alone. Her mother asked again for forgiveness, tears streaking down her face, desperate and raw. Arianna considered it carefully, realizing forgiveness wasn't a requirement, but choice. She acknowledged the admission with a nod, keeping her emotions controlled and measured. The detective assured her mother that cooperation might affect sentencing, but not erase guilt. Arianna made notes, documenting the confession and her observations for her attorney. She realized the family she once depended on now depended on the law to survive. The confession freed Arianna from the uncertainty that had shadowed her for months. She no longer wondered if her mother had been involved or complicit in deceit. Every detail confirmed the betrayal, and yet it brought clarity and closure she needed. She left the station feeling a weight lift, knowing the truth was now fully exposed. The past could no longer manipulate her, hide behind lies, or exploit her identity. Arianna finally understood the full scope of the deceit and the path forward clearly. Her family's secrets were out, accountability was beginning, and her freedom remained intact. For the first time, she could breathe knowing justice was catching up with those who harmed her. Arianna sat alone in her apartment, the weight of the last weeks pressing against her chest. The truth of her family's betrayal played over in her mind like a relentless replay. Anger rose first, hot and sharp, threatening to consume the calm she had built. Then came sadness, a deep ache for years lost to manipulation and neglect. She clenched her fists, feeling both the sting of old wounds and the power of survival. Miles, her closest friend, arrived quietly, sensing the storm brewing inside her. He sat beside her, offering only presence, no words, just steady support. "You didn't do anything wrong," he said softly. "They built their guilt on you, not the other way around." Arianna nodded, letting his words sink slowly through the layers of doubt. She realized she had carried the blame for far too long, absorbing it like it belonged to her. Now, the truth was undeniable, and it no longer defined her worth. Her mother's confession echoed in her memory, a mix of apology and desperation. Arianna felt conflicted, torn between old love, lingering resentment, and self-preservation. Tears slid down her cheeks as she admitted to herself the complexity of forgiveness. She could see her mother's fear, but she also saw the years of deliberate harm. Philip and Jenna lingered in her thoughts, symbols of control, entitlement, and false innocence. She had witnessed their collapse, their panic, and now understood her own resilience. The fight had been long, exhausting, but Arianna had emerged intact, stronger than before. She realized that freedom wasn't just absence of contact, it was reclaiming her life entirely. Miles reminded her that strength was not only in survival, but in choosing her path forward. Arianna reflected on the years she had spent as the family's unwilling provider and protector. She acknowledged the sacrifices she had made and allowed herself a quiet pride. No one could take that away, not even those who had tried to manipulate and control her. The memories of abuse, neglect, and exploitation surfaced, but no longer had power to harm. She recognized that her life was hers to build, piece by piece, unburdened by guilt. Her apartment felt different now, a safe space, a fortress of her own making. She thought about the future, her work, her independence, and the emotional healing ahead. Each plan, each decision, each moment belonged solely to her, free from coercion. She allowed herself a small smile, a rare moment of genuine relief and clarity. The past had shaped her, but it would not dictate her, not anymore. Her mother's confession and the law's intervention brought a finality she had long needed. Arianna felt a subtle lightness, as though the chains of manipulation had been removed. The anger remained, but it was tempered by understanding and self-respect. Sadness lingered too, a quiet reminder of lessons learned and pain endured. She knew healing would take time, but she now trusted her strength to guide her. Miles stayed, a silent witness to her journey from fear to empowerment. Arianna allowed herself to envision a life of genuine independence and clarity. She would confront her mother if needed, but on her terms, without fear or coercion. She would face Jenna and Philip, but with boundaries firmly in place, unshakable. Arianna breathed deeply, savoring the sensation of control, safety, and autonomy. She realized the past was behind her, visible but powerless, no longer a cage. Hope flickered brightly, paired with a cautious optimism for the future she would create. For the first time in decades, Arianna felt fully alive, fully herself, fully free. The trial concluded, and justice moved at its deliberate pace. Her mother accepted a plea deal, admitting guilt and facing consequences. Philip awaited sentencing, his anger now powerless against legal authority. Jenna remained in denial, clinging to illusions while reality crumbled around her. Arianna relocated to a new apartment, a space completely her own. She locked the past behind her, carrying only lessons and hard-won strength. Her work flourished, and independence became a daily, tangible reality. The financial burdens once forced upon her were finally lifted and erased. She met with counselors, slowly unpacking years of trauma and emotional strain. Each session allowed her to reclaim a piece of herself previously buried. Arianna reconnected with friends, building relationships rooted in trust and respect. She embraced boundaries firmly, knowing her safety and peace were non-negotiable. Every day she walked with confidence, no longer defined by family manipulation. The chains of obligation, guilt, and fear were gone, leaving clarity in their place. Arianna felt empowered, knowing she had survived, fought, and reclaimed her life. Freedom was no longer a dream. It was the reality she now lived fully. For the first time, she could breathe, laugh, and make choices without compromise. Her past shaped her, but it no longer dictated her, controlled her, or confined her. Arianna Hayes stood strong, independent, and unshakable, ready to write her own story.